Have you ever thought about moving to Australia on a work holiday visa? Did you know you can teach English abroad in Australia? I'm Jamie from ESL Teacher 365 and I've been teaching in Australia for the past 5 years. In this video, I'll share how to apply for an Australian work holiday visa, what it's like to teach English in Australia, and what qualifications you'll need. If you want personalized help getting your Teach Abroad adventure started, then don't forget to fill out my survey, which is linked down below. Now, let's get started. Work Holiday Visa Australia, how to apply. What is an Australian work holiday visa? This is a visa that allows you to stay in Australia for up to 12 months and hold jobs for up to 6 months at a time. Most people use this visa to travel around Australia and fund their travels as they go, but you can stay in one place and work as a teacher. This is exactly what I did in Brisbane, Australia from 2016 to 2017. There are two different kinds of work holiday visas in Australia, the 417 and the 462. Depending on your passport, you'll apply for one or the other. So let's take a look at the differences. First of all, to get a 417 Australian working holiday visa, you need a passport from the following countries. What country are you from? Leave a comment down below. You must be between 18 and 30 years old inclusive. If you are from Canada, France, or Ireland, you can be up to 35 years old. For the working holiday visa, you'll need at least 5,000 Australian dollars plus enough money to buy a ticket out of Australia. You must meet health and character requirements as well. To be eligible for the 462 Australian working holiday visa, you need a passport from the following countries. This visa is for people between the ages of 18 and 30, and you'll need to meet education, health, and character requirements. You must have a functional level of English and have at least 5,000 Australian dollars in funds. For both the 417 and the 462 work holiday visas, you need to apply for them when you are outside of Australia. I applied for the 462 when I was living in Spain, and it took about a week to get my visa granted. I did have to do an extra medical check, which included a chest x-ray, before they could grant my visa. The cost for both of these visas right now is 495 Australian dollars. I'll leave links down below for both the 417 and 462 visas, but do be aware that Australian borders are currently closed, so this program is paused for the moment. I do anticipate that once the borders open up again, they will restart this program and there will probably be a lot of applications, so do keep that in mind. My experience teaching abroad in Australia. When I tell people that I'm teaching abroad in Australia, I'm usually met with some very confused looks because people don't even think about teaching ESL in a native English-speaking country. But you have to understand that I'm not teaching Australians, I'm teaching foreign students. Before everything changed in 2020, there were a lot of overseas students from China, Japan, South Korea, Brazil, Colombia, Spain, France, all over the world that were studying in Australia. This is because unlike the US, where if you're on a student visa you cannot work, Australia allows students to hold a student visa and work for up to 20 hours per week to help fund their studies. We also had groups of Japanese students who would come over for a week or 2 weeks at a time, and there are also high school programs for Chinese students to help them prepare to go into Australian schools. I worked at 2 English language schools in Brisbane during my work holiday visa. Remember that 6-month limit that I told you about? Well, I worked for my first school for 6 months. I had a job search of 1 day, found another job at another English school across the street from my old school, and I ended up staying there and working there for about 3 years. I taught both general English and Cambridge exam prep. This was to adults mostly. There were a few students that were under 18, but in general, the students were between 20 and 30 years old. So the classes for general English had rolling admissions, meaning that I would get a few new students each week and a few would leave. But if I taught Cambridge courses, those were closed courses. So I had the same students with me for a few months at a time. Qualifications for teaching English abroad in Australia. If you want to teach English in Australia, then make sure you have a TEFL certificate before you come to Australia. I had a master's degree and many years of experience, but I was still required to have a TEFL certificate. I ended up doing a CELTA course while I was teaching at my first school, so I was doing the CELTA only part-time to make up for this requirement. But if possible, I highly recommend doing your TEFL before you come. And if you need any recommendations for courses, I will link a few down below that you can check out. You'll also need at least a bachelor's degree in any subject to teach English in Australia. Pay is based on your education and your previous experience. So if you have a master's degree or a degree in TESOL or a teaching certificate, then you will start at a higher base pay. The only thing that's not so good for foreigners is that any teaching experience outside of Australia only counts for half. So if you've been teaching for 10 years, you're making the same as someone from Australia who's been teaching for 5. So do keep that in mind. If you aren't a native English speaker, you are still eligible to teach English in Australia as long as you are qualified. So I'd say that at both schools that I worked at, about half of the teachers were non-native speakers. So again, people don't really assume that non-native speakers can teach English in a native speaking country, but you have to remember that you're not teaching Australians, you're teaching foreign students. The last thing you'll need to work in a school is an Australian blue card. This is really easy to obtain, but there is a fee. I'll leave the link for the application down below. Who should teach abroad in Australia? If you meet all the requirements for the Australian Work Holiday Visa, it's one of the easiest ways to teach in this beautiful country. Also, if you don't speak any other foreign languages, it's a great way to have that experience of teaching abroad without having it impact your daily life. Although borders are currently closed, hopefully the English teaching industry will bounce back once foreign students are let back in. I hope this video shows you how to teach English abroad on an Australian Work Holiday Visa. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my weekly videos where I share all my teach abroad secrets. For more tips and tutorials, you can find me on Instagram at ESLTeacher365, and please give this video a like if you learned something new today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Happy teaching, and remember, the world is yours to teach and explore.